Dude, they're fucking doing it again. The animation meme community is stupid drama again. When will we learn? Hello everyone! I'm not even going to pretend like there's a fancy introduction that's supposed to go with this video. This video is going to be an in-depth commentary on the Google document going around about JIMBOJIMMY123 and why this situation is extremely narrow-minded and why I don't think it should have been made public. Reminder, my opinions are mine and mine alone, and you're glad to debate them if you please, but do try and hear me out regarding this situation, considering I have experiences in these situations, and unfortunately, if they're not handled properly, they can get extremely sour. Let's cut into the dead carcass of a situation and deep dive into the sludge! Just looking at the document, by the way, the document will be linked in the description respectfully because I would like you to verify my sources in my commentary. The formatting of this document is extremely disjointed and distracting. Additionally, the tiers of what's considered triggering are not even remotely ordered in what would be considered most important to properly cover. Additionally, introducing yourselves and writing the document mutually comes off as extremely unprofessional and leaves room for interpretation on who wrote which parts of this document. I know that there's colors labeling who is who, but you guys are co-writing a document where anything can be theoretically written by either party. Additionally, I understand these warnings are placed to encourage people to make their own conclusions alongside preventing harassment towards Jimbo and their friends, but you guys have already laid it out in a fashion that demonizes Jimbo without properly mentioning Jimbo's age in conjunction with the topics he's accused of mentioning.
Jimbo is a famous content creator mostly known by his creepy content and wacky art style. He's been mostly recognized by the video You Drive Me Crazy, My Bread Was Turned Into Crisp, and Hyakugajayuchi 2. You might ask, why is there a doc of Jimbo? That's because Jimbo and his friends did many things wrong, and I'm sure if you read this doc you will understand why it's wrong to support him.
Jimbo did not ask to be famous. Additionally, it's very implied with the way he was posting his content, leading very little tags. He did not exactly want to grow to this magnitude. No creator predicts that they will grow to this magnitude. You are neglecting to mention his age. For sincerity's sakes, I've heard that Jimbo is a minor. More specifically within the age bracket of 14 and 15 respectively. If Jimbo is doing wrong, then it's a little questionable to immediately jump to calling him out and demonizing him instead of trying to explain why what he's doing is wrong. By avoiding education and purposefully avoiding a conversation with Jimbo, it allows you to get away with smearing him in this document.
Jimbo's server has been always open to self-harm. Jokes which are hurtful and triggering to those affected / struggling with self-harm. There have been several screenshots found of one of the admins in Jimbo's server scaring someone by telling them, "I'm gonna self-harm." Stuff like that, which was rude and uncalled for. After that person calmed down and stopped freaking out, the server began to bash this person for not understanding sarcasm.
Self-harm jokes are uncomfortable. I understand that sentiment, and I'm not going to call people who are uncomfortable by those jokes sensitive. It's completely subjective whether you're comfortable with them or not, but to insinuate that Jimbo and his friends are joking about these topics in a manner that's meant to genuinely offend or trigger others is a little bittersweet, and completely ignores why they could be making these jokes. Also, your wording is extremely important here. You're specifying that his admins were guilty of this offense and not Jimbo himself. Just because they are associated does not mean Jimbo is responsible for their actions. Also, the placements of these jokes could be for coping reasons. They could be afflicted with self-harming themselves. It may be distasteful, but it doesn't mean these jokes aren't allowed to exist.
10 Corbers Jimbo equals Jimbo. Youngling Slayer 90,000 equals Anakin. His friend keep talking about pro-shippers and Jimbo saying that he's a proud pro-shipper, which is extremely weird and unfunny. Jada.
If someone is engaging in pro-shipping or consuming pro-ship media when they are as young as Jimbo or younger, then it's typically a sign that they were either groomed into it or are trying to cope with pre-existing trauma that they're trying to understand through the means of consuming dark fiction. If you genuinely see this and completely ignore the implications of Jimbo consuming this content and making it, then you lack critical media literacy, and I'm appalled. It's entirely plausible Jimbo could have been groomed into doing this too, because there's allegedly be someone involved in these allegations who is an adult who encouraged him to act this way and indulge in problematic themes. Do not blame the minors, blame the adults taking advantage of them!
Jimbo and his friends were talking about how a dead person can't feel it while dead, while they were talking about weird kinks in general and explaining how a dead person's body relaxes when they're dead, which is a really gross thing and made Youngling Slayer 9000 somehow aroused. Not only Jimbo himself is necrophilic, Jimbo's friend is also necrophilic and gross. Jada.
Again, this could be an after effect of severe grooming. Necrophilia is not a conventional dynamic to be interested in. It's also an extremely dark dynamic that typically is explored in extreme kink contexts. This is not just playful, weird conversations being had by minors, it is an example of severe grooming on Jimbo's end if he's engaging with it. If you fail to understand how to educate and maybe try to steer him away from these topics and instead opt to shame him and demonize him, then you should not be making this document and your friend shouldn't be involved either. You are inherently enabling him to push you and your resources away because you're not explaining to him why socially these things are considered problematic. And they may be considered problematic to you at a base understanding, but when you already established he has engaged and is engaging in pro-shipping, then it's already implied it's fictional to him. People who, under the guise of fiction, engage in problematic tropes alongside being on the spectrum, as you also mentioned in this document, Jimbo is autistic and a minor. They are going to need more understanding rather than bashing them. This way of teaching is extremely destructive and spreads misinformation and only serves to make you feel righteous.
A lot of the admins are racist and rude to other members. From my experience, they kept using the N-word for everything, and I doubt they can even say it. The admins of this server continue to bash people of color and have no shame for it.
Is the racism involved in the server a problem? Yes, entirely. I'm not even going to fight you on this because to fight you on this would be extremely contradictory and ignorant. But to state that these actions fall entirely onto Jimbo himself is extremely questionable. He is not his admins, he is his own person. But I'm not neglecting his genuinely borderline racist comments towards minorities. But these are also comments that he as a minor can grow from and learn in a healthier environment. He does not have this environment and is furthermore inclined to sink deeper into it because these kinds of abrasive callouts that avoid educating him only serve to harm him. I also want to make note of the comment regarding this conduct with Rethley. You guys noted in this comment specifically that Rethley was okay with these jokes and consented. If so, then that's not really an issue you or myself can fix. It's not right or morally permissible, but ultimately if these jokes stay between friends, then that's where it ends. I'm not saying you shouldn't make a note of these issues of this conduct though. You should entirely call him out on this and educate him, because he can still learn from these actions if you let him.
Fat shaming has been a common thing in the server. If you disagree with them, they will immediately call you fat and continue to shout at you for disagreeing and shame the person for being fat, which is offensive and rude to overweight individuals. Here's an example of them shaming people for being fat.
How many times am I going to come back to the educate and allocate argument? So many times, actually. Yes, fat shaming is arguably a bad thing. Nobody's denying that, but have you also considered that among all of these things, the fat shaming should have been one of the more minor things you covered? In addition, the little excerpt of them making a comment at you was not needed. It's extremely childish, yes. But you are derailing your document by making petty firebacks at the problematic people you're trying to cover.
If it's not obvious, Jimbo likes to draw suggestive art including triggering topics and not safe for work of other rocks. Here is some proof of Jimbo asking his friend to draw art 34 of someone's uck. Another reminder, 10 Horbers Jimbo is Jimbo.
This topic's a little more complex than I'd like to admit, mainly because of the fact there could be many reasons as to why Jimbo's participating in consuming and producing NSFW art of his friends' characters and his own. If a minor is drawing suggestive art meant to be kept to themselves and their friends who also happen to be minors, then this is a non-issue. This isn't a problem at all, actually. A minor drawing not-safe-for-work material is not illegal as long as they are not publicly distributing it, because distribution of that content made by themselves would harm them and put them in danger. Also, I'm not ignoring the fact that the characters are minors themselves, but people tend to be attracted to dynamics where characters mirror their own age. It is not a weird thing for minors to want to sexualize minor characters, but it is a weird thing if an adult is doing the same thing because they aren't close in age to be sexualizing them. Also, I'll bring up the fact that Jimbo was encouraged to do these things by adults and people generally older than him. If you are to blame anyone, blame the adults encouraging him to do these things.
Jimbo has made it clear to their friends that they are into a rape and his friends too. The screenshots that I'm about to show are the user's callout experience with Jimbo and another person's experience with Jimbo. They choose to keep their name blurred for the sake of privacy.
Regarding the possible rape kink, if Jimbo has a possible interest in rape, especially as a kink dynamic or as a minor, then it is usually a high indication of trauma. You guys are refusing to read in between the lines of the implications of him being interested in these things because it's more convenient for you to call him bad instead of properly addressing these things and educating him. These problems are problems not because Jimbo is a bad person for being interested in these things. They're a problem because people are taking advantage of his possible trauma. Additionally, if rape jokes are made by victims of sexual abuse and similar trauma, then you are not allowed to speak on how they cope with their trauma. If it is triggering you, then it is your job to navigate yourself out of the conversation. You curate your internet experience and nobody else but yourself is responsible for that.
There is no way this is real, but the server has a channel dedicated to piss, in which people draw a character kissing on Anakin's persona, which is weird and gross. What's more worse is Jimbo himself isn't doing anything about it. Jimbo wanted to keep this specific topic private BTW. He didn't ask for it.
Oh man, I love lumping in more personal topics that really do not need to be brought up in an awareness document. Piss kinks are weird, but they do not belong on the same level of wanting to sexually assault people and desecrate corpses. This is an extremely minor infraction sandwiched between extremely sensitive topics that was only brought up to further humiliate Jimbo. You're not doing anything but that by including this piss kink section in the document.
In this screenshot, this is a convo between Jimbo and a person. They want their name to be blurred out for privacy reasons. Jimbo said stuff that rude and offensive to Christians.
Finally, something that can be considered genuinely problematic and disrespectful. The disrespecting of others' faiths is extremely important to address and should be addressed accordingly. It is offensive and is inherently destructive with no other means than to just be that. Hey Judy, I know that you and your friend are making this document in good faith, but you guys are either purposely mishandling this or you guys are too young to understand what you're covering and the implications of it towards Jimbo as a whole. Yes, Jimbo uses a lot of razor iconography in his animations. It is extremely implied by the way he portrays the character that he's extremely mentally ill and not to be glorified even if it is not specifically written. Just because these things are uncomfortable to the average person does not mean they do not have a right to exist as a concept. To address the server, then making fun of autistic people and people with other disabilities/ailments is a questionable thing. Hell, even a really bad thing. There's no doubt about that, and I'm not going to act as if they've done no wrong. But you also cannot force these people to change their opinions by putting them on blast and refusing to educate them on why the things they say and do are wrong. And I'd argue that the situations they put themselves in, the way they talk about rape, self-harm, necrophilia, and other sensitive topics would indicate that they are also mentally ill. By the by, minors making sexual jokes towards other minors is not a crime. If you are uncomfortable, you have every right to state you're uncomfortable and to stop engaging in the conversation if it makes you uncomfortable. This by itself is not important enough to have a spot in this document. That's meant to be documenting Jimbo being a controversial person because Jimbo didn't even fucking say this!
Judy and I have noticed Jimbo's concerning behavior and the content on his server. There is disturbing and triggering material that may upset some of Jimbo's fans. We recognize that Jimbo creates distressing content, but the server itself is also troubling. It's important to acknowledge the truth and not overlook the actions of Jimbo and his friends. It's important to note that our intention in writing this document is to raise awareness, and we are not encouraging anyone to attack Jimbo or his friends. You are still free to enjoy his content, if you wish. Thank you for taking the time to read this document. Stay safe. Jada. Yet again, please do not bash Jimbo or his friends. Even we discourage that. Just don't interact with Jimbo and his friends, or do whatever you want. Just do not harass Jimbo and his friends. Yes, they may have done horrible things, but it's inconsiderate and rude to attack them. Plus it's make the situation much more. Me and Judy thank you for taking your time to read this message, as this means so much to us. If you have the power to do so, please share this doc to spread awareness about the situation. We thank you all for reading this doc, and please stay safe. Is less than 3. Can't believe we have to say this too, but please do not attack the creators of this doc. Me and Judy did not make this doc to cancel Jimbo. We made this doc for awareness purposes only. We appreciate your patience. Jada.
Let me dismantle this message in full and explain why, despite your intentions being noble, what you have done is anything but being noble. Why did you not think to try and talk to Jimbo about these things first? Why did you almost immediately go to making this document with the aims to harm Jimbo's reputation among all else? Yes, this server is troubling, and that is something people should be made aware of. But the inclusions of topics and situations meant to demonize and embarrass Jimbo instead of educating them in this document does nothing but more damage. You implicating Jimbo as someone to stay away from and spread awareness about will do nothing but encourage people to harass him because you accused him of being extremely problematic without any forethought. This situation is being handled extremely inappropriately. This Google document should have never been made. All it has done is spread more misinformation and cause Jimbo distress. I'm not saying he is completely innocent of all that he has done, but understand he is a child and still growing at the end of the day and needs to be guided properly through these situations. To deflect blame onto him without even considering any of the other variables is fucking insane and only serves to humiliate him. With that, that's my final stance on this situation. I'll reiterate that I do not wish any harm upon the document creators, and I especially do not wish any harm on Jimbo and his community. But this document was extremely harmful and misleading despite its noble intentions. Apparently so misleading that people thought Jimbo was a child groomer. These situations are meant to be discussed in private, not dragged out on the internet for people to gawk and make spectacles out of. All you have done is teach the general community that it's guilty until proven innocent, which is so harmful within these conversations. Additionally, you have undone so much progress regarding these types of situations. I hope everyone has a nice day, afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you are. And I hope that you've gained insight upon the coverage of this situation. Peace, love, unity, respect. Sincerely, Lucy. Oh, by the way, I know my coverage in this video seemed like really fucking direct and everything. I kind of want to let go of the attention, so have this really stupid fucking, like, blooper. If you can't tell, I'm not reading from a script. My bad, anyways, take this fuck-ass blooper. It's supposed to go with this video. This video is going to be an in-depth commentary on the Google document going around about JIMBOJIMMY. Jimby!